Hi everyone, I'm Gemma.
I'm Matty.
And this is Around the Block, a brand new podcast all about stammering, brought to you by STAMMA, aka the British Stammering Association. Hello, hi Matty.
Hello, Gemma. How's your week been?
Yeah, been good. I feel like we've got a joint news to announce. That last night we were on the radio.
We were.
Boogaloo
we did our
radio.
first press.
Boogaloo radio.
So we were on a show hosted by my dear friend Peggy. She does a show on the Boogaloo Radio Network every Friday evening between 6 and 8 p.m. And she kindly asked us both to be one of her guests on there.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about how we met, Gemma and I, and then just about this podcast. We promoted it, I suppose, didn't we?
We did. We plugged.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I was very anxious beforehand. Were you?
Probably less so than you, because I know Peggy's. You hadn't ever met her before.
Yeah, she's so lovely. So lovely. So much fun. Is. But I did think, though, this morning, I was like, we didn't stammer at all.
No, I mean, no.
And how frustrating. I said to my mum, and I'm like,
what a bummer.
People listening are going to be like, sorry, what? These two people.
These two frauds.
And we're like ranting about how hard it is to have a stammer. So, and we don't stammer in that segment, which was annoying. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how that's changed in our lives? But we're nuts. Yeah. I didn't stammer. What an absolute nightmare for me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard for me.
As a slight disclaimer for me and for my appearance today, I drank 3 beers last night, and at my ripe old age of 27 has left me feeling a little bit under the weather.
He's hungover.
Like slightly. And obviously I know from experience that does make my fluency begin to slip slightly.
See, I think it's because I'm in Wales, in the Brecon Beacons, the national park where my mum lives, and it's so peaceful here that I do notice a difference. Absolutely,
it's just calming, isn't it?
It
calms everything down. We had a blast on Peggy's show, so we wanted to just use time just to thank her for having us on.
Thanks, Peggy,
and then just to plug her and what she does, because she's awesome, frankly. So as I said, she hosts her show every Friday between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the Boogaloo Radio Network. She also spins records as well. She's got what I believe is a weekly set at the Signature Brew pub in Walthamstow. So if you're in those areas, then head over there and check her out.
Today we're going to talk about friends and family, their responses to stammering, social situations, all the fun stuff, parties, all of it.
Where would you like to start, Jem?
I think you should start talking about. I think you should do all the hard work. I mean, that's do you want to talk about relationships with your friends growing up, or what comes to mind when you think of how stammering has affected your relationships with your friends?
Like, I have a close friend group in Bristol who I've known them 15 years, probably now, some of them, and we are all very, very tight. We all live across the UK at the moment. Over those 15 years, I can probably count the amount of conversations about stammering that we've had, on one hand, honestly.
Really?
Honestly, and at no point have I ever hidden it from them. But they've so rarely ever raised it with me, and I've barely ever raised it with them. It wasn't any conscious. Like, I didn't ever try to like suppress a conversation at all. Like, like the moments when it would come up, obviously I'd be open and I'd talk about it. Like, it's just who I am with this. Of course it is. The interesting thing for me is at no point did I ever actively want to talk to like a wider group about it. And it didn't seem as if it was a big enough deal for them to want to talk to me about it. And that, in my view, is just the absolute ideal way to broach stammering, because
just to not talk about it.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
Well, yes, essentially, because I don't want it to be noteworthy, essentially.
Okay.
Like I'm sure that we'll talk about what types of reactions we've got from people to us talking about stammering to them, essentially. And to slightly spoiler it for me, like I don't want to have a reaction from anybody. Like, I want someone to just be like, all right, well, like, I don't even know why you felt the need to mention that, because they will have never done anything to make me feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't want it to be noteworthy, essentially. But the really interesting thing is, since the release of this podcast, has just been the really positive response that I've got from everyone and from people in that friend group who we've never talked about stammering before.
Wow.
And, I've received texts and WhatsApps just of them supporting me and just saying that this is a great thing that you're doing, and the podcast sounds great, and like that they seem interested in what we've had to say. Can you believe that? That's baffling,
I
right?
know. What's interesting about this podcast?
I don't know.
But that's so interesting that this podcast has opened up that conversation now. I mean, not that you really want a conversation. It's just like they're supporting you. That's really lovely that you got that support from them. Do you think?
Of course.
Do you think? Have you talked about it since face to face with your friends, or is that something that you're just you're fine with?
Like I would expect them to now bring it up in a conversation, but more through the lens of, so we listen to that podcast and it's great and we thought it was interesting. Not hey, so how are you doing with your stammer? Like, how does it make you feel? Because I don't, like, who wants to have that conversation with like 20 people? I don't.
I mean, who has 20 friends? I definitely don't.
One person here.
You're like, Gemma, I actually have friends.
20 is a conservative estimate. No, it's not. That's not true at all. I really want to get that on record.
Do you know you're allowed like 6 people round from the 18th of May, and I'm having a party? Yeah. I struggled to invite 6 people. I literally struggled. Anyway, I mean, what is interesting here is that you're not saying that stammering is something that you don't want to talk about. It's just not something that you feel like you've got to give attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm curious, like, what about those times when you stammered in front of your friends? Would they just not talk about it, or not? How would that go?
So the vast majority of the time, they would just let me finish. And at no point have I ever told them that this is how I'd like you to react. Look, my friends are great. Like, I can think of occasions when they finished sentences, like if I'm mid a really heavy block. But at no point did I say, actually, don't do that.
Did you ever want to say that?
I mean, I'm sure that in the moment, I probably should have done, and I probably wish I had done at the time.
Do you think you not feeling the need to talk about it with all your friends Sorry, am I?
No.
I feel like I'm
bring it.
interrogating you, but it's really interesting because I feel like I'm the opposite, and I think this is because how your parents were growing up, that they were extremely like supportive and took you to speech therapy. I know there's a negative to that, and you've talked about that. Like, but do you know what I mean? That it was so out in the open, and they were so supportive that I think it gives. That's the reason as to why you don't feel the need to talk about it with your friends, and you don't feel the need for them to know how hard it was for you. I don't know if that's something that you agree with or not.
Yeah. Like, I think it's really, really hard for me to underplay like just the importance of how my parents maintained such an open line of communication, and they fostered an environment where I was able to talk to them. They were always encouraging me to be really open about how my stammer was making me feel. They brought me to many different types of therapy. They were also very receptive to what I was telling them was working and what wasn't working.
Am I right in thinking that you and your brother haven't talked about your stammer? Or again, it's not something that you'd sit down and chat about? You know, does he know about this podcast? What's your relationship with him like?
Oh, I mean, our relationship is great. We are really, really close, and I think that I couldn't ask for anyone better at all. But my stammer, at least as far as I know, has always felt like a bit of a non-entity between us. Like I genuinely can't think of a conversation that we've ever had about it.
Really?
And and he knows that I don't see the benefit for us talking about it. He obviously knows about this podcast, and I wouldn't have it any other way between us, like, at all.
So what I'm hearing
Please
is
don't change, Dom.
Don't change, Dominic.
Don't change.
You're perfect. Maddie loves you. You're perfect the way you are. I mean, it's so interesting because what I'm hearing is kind of like the same thing with all your relationships, is that you actually don't feel the need to broach the subject, and you don't need everyone to sit down and say, you know, like, God, this is a really big thing. And perhaps because you had that open dialogue from the start, and it's really interesting because I feel like I'm the opposite, and I think that comes from growing up in a family which weren't ever open about things. So I'm constantly being open with every single person in my life now, because I feel like
this is me.
Yeah, absolutely. Splurge. Yeah, about everything. I feel like I've broadcast like the darkest times of my life because I know how dangerous it is not to talk about those things. That's where I'm at. Like, I think that not talking about stammering with every single one of my friends is high in a part of me, because I did that for so long. Like, I didn't talk about my stammer till I was 21. So I have a totally different experience to you, and that's so interesting.
Well, let's start at the beginning for you. Let's talk about your parents.
Well, my upbringing is like the total opposite to yours in terms of like it. We just didn't really talk about stuff as a family. You know, there was lots of things
stuff like in general.
Yeah, like there was always like the elephant in the room about my stammer, or any kind of like serious thing going on, if that makes sense. It was very unspoken. And I think that, I mean, I understand why that is now, because my parents both had quite challenging childhood, so that's their way of coping, is to just not talk about it. Whereas for me, it had such a damaging effect on me, because I literally wouldn't even acknowledge to myself that I had a stammer, even though I was having I was stammering, of course, and like people were like laughing at me, and I just couldn't. I just knew it was there at the bottom of my stomach, like it was like like lurking, and I just thought I can't even admit this to myself. So I really didn't talk about it growing up at all. I think I had one conversation with my best friend and about it, but I mean, literally until I was 21. I didn't talk about with any of my friends, and that obviously drastically changed. Over a lot of hard work through speech, therapy, and all the stammering support groups. I think that's probably where it started.
Where that encouragement to talk about it came from.
Yeah.
So, what caused you to have that one conversation with your friend, and how did that go?
I can't really remember when I broached it with her or why. I think it was maybe after a teacher had said something rude to me, and maybe we talked about it on the way home. I think she said at the time, like, it's okay. Like, I stammer too sometimes, which is kind of like the general feedback of what someone gives to you to make you feel like it's not that bad.
Classic.
Yeah. But I mean, around the age of 21 at university, I mean, I feel like I got into some pretty bad friendships, and there was actually a few times when they would take the mick out of someone else who had a stammer, not knowing that I had a stammer. And I remember being so uncomfortable and having this inner conflict and being so ashamed that I didn't stand up for it. Like, didn't stand up for that person they took the mick out of. And also, it's not just that, it's like, why do I even want to be friends with the person who does that? And I feel like I just, like, when you just feel so stuck. And at the time of going to speech therapy, I just had a time to reflect and think, all my friendships pretty much at the time are having a negative impact. All of them have taken the mick out of someone else who stammered, or me. I can think of several times when friends in the past had taken the mick out of my speech. They hadn't known that I had a stammer, and I'm sure if hearing this now that they'd feel bad. But I think it's not really about their intention, that they just didn't mean to. Unfortunately, it was received in a very bad way at a very bad time in my life. And I know many people didn't like this at the time, but I mean, a big part of my journey and acceptance was I actually cut pretty much all those friends out of my life, actually, during my time in speech therapy. Right or wrong, it had an amazing effect on me, where I was just able to not have all these negative opinions about stammering, like being reinforced. And just people that I couldn't open up to. I was struggling with depression at the time as well. I felt like I couldn't tell them because they just wouldn't be understanding. So I think
that there's no question of it being right or wrong. It's right, isn't it? It's right because it helped you. These people weren't having a positive impact on your life.
And
we don't need people in our lives who solely retract from us.
You're so right. And I mean, saying that, I have kept like a few like long-term friends, and I mean the person I think the most of when I like it's impacted my stammering time in like terms of my friendships is my best friend Maria. I spoke a lot about her to my speech therapist because I really wanted to tell her about my stammer. Like, it's the opposite to your experience. I literally, had to plan out how anxious I was about almost like coming out to her and saying, this is what I've been dealing with for the last few years. And that was a major step when I eventually sat her down and said, I need to talk to you about this. So it's so funny that it's the opposite to you. And I've done that with every single one of my friends. I've sat them down and said, I have a stammer and I've had all these experiences and I need you to like understand it to move on in our friendship. So it's so different to yours, which is so interesting.
Have you got any regrets about you wishing that you'd spoken about your stammer at a younger age, like you'd spoken sooner?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. So many times. In fact, before...
Now we're here to talk about regrets.
Yes.
Come on.
So many. I mean, in some ways I don't, because I feel like I'm the person that I am today because of that. And I actually just called my dad before we recorded this, because he I mean, I don't really know how to say it, but he lacks empathy, let's say. I think
that's a very fair way to say that.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's got narcissistic personality disorder. He won't hear this, by the way, because he has no interest in anything that I do.
Let's go in on Gemma's dad. No. Here we go.
I've made peace with it. He actually can't help it. No, he actually can't help it. Like, so I thought I would call him for him to give me something controversial, because he's obviously been quite unhelpful along the way about my stammer, interrupting me, talking over me, not understanding, but instead he was actually super supportive, and I mean, can you believe, and he also expressed he felt really bad. He said, I feel so bad about your childhood. I feel so bad that me and your mum had multiple discussions where we said it will just go away. And he said,
really?
I feel.
Oh, that's such a standard, isn't it?
Yeah. And both him and my mum have expressed like they wish they did something earlier on. But I mean, I'd still say that my dad does not phrase things right, and he like the conversations I have with him, I live with him, and my stammer is I do stammer a lot more with him, I think, because my difficult relationship with him, and when I'm stammering, let's say I'm stuck on S, so I'm like he will then guess the words whilst I'm mid-block.
Yeah, it's unhelpful,
and
isn't it?
No, but multiple, so he'll be like sausages, Swindon Town, that's where he's from, and I'm like, no, Dad, will you just let me finish? But very frustrating for him. And my mum quite honestly said this morning, she said, as patient and understanding as she is, she said it's actually quite difficult sometimes. She said, because she's like, my brain is working so fast, like as all of ours is, and you just want to jump onto the next point. And when someone is blocking, it's just a natural instinct as humans. We're very, very quick. So she says, we never ever meant it, or anyone never means it in a negative way, not. But it's that natural instinct. So I think there's a place to still be working on that. I think no relationship that you have with your friends or your family or your partner in regards to stammering is going to be perfect, because unless they stammer themselves, and even then they might not give you the response that you always want. So I think it's a working relationship. That's what I would say with everyone absolutely. In my life. But the best friendships I have now is people like my best friend, my two best friends, are people that are so much about stammering, like they're so interested about it, because they don't know that much.
Absolutely.
So like they're so excited about this podcast, like your friends were, but like they want to know more. Like my best friend asked me so many questions about it, and I think that's a really good way forward for people who don't know how to broach the topic, like with someone that they love. Like she just asked loads, and she's like, God, that must be so hard, or what was it like for you then, or like about blocks, or stammering on my name today but not stammering on my name in an hour's time, like it's so complicated. So I think that's a really good way to approach it.
Definitely. I just wanted to just add on what you talked about in terms of like the reasonings for why your parents and others, as to why they would attempt to intervene on a block, or why they would try to, as your dad does, why he would try to guess the word. And it's based off what my mum once said, that it's really hard for her to not do that, because she can see how much trouble it's causing me, and she can see like the internal struggle, and like it's someone that she loves really, really dearly, who's going who is experiencing something that is causing them, obviously not like physical pain, but like it's causing them pain, and so it becomes almost natural to be like, okay, well, person that I love is in trouble, I can do this thing to alleviate that.
Yes, yeah.
And so I used to like that had never once occurred to me ever, because all I hear is stop. It's like, I can do this, just like, how much does patience cost, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's interesting how it's just interpreted so differently, right? And it's never done out of being cruel, obviously. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's never done from like a cruel place.
Yeah. And I think patience is difficult for pretty much everyone. Like, having to be patient for someone, and having a stammer. I mean, it's quite ironic because of my dad as a person. He does like to talk at you and not really listen to what you're saying. So I think there's some kind of irony in that he actually has to stop, especially when I'm stammering, and he has to actually listen to what I'm trying to say. But it's difficult. And he said the same thing. He said, I just want to immediately jump in and kind of like save you, but that makes me feel like that I'm slow. That makes me think that I'm like an imbecile. That's how it makes me feel. It makes me feel like everyone else can do this thing, and I can't do it. That's what it makes me feel like. But
of course,
it's just, you're saying, right.
It's not ideal.
It's just different experiences, and everyone is coming at things with the best intentions. It just might not be delivered well, and that's where we can learn from each other. I haven't really got any experience in this topic because I've been single for a long time, but I wonder about, what's your relationship with your girlfriend Steph like in stammering? Like, did you ever tell her that you had a stammer, or again, is that not something that you talked about? It was just like she figured out for herself.
So I initially disclosed about my stammer to Steph. We were in a bar somewhere in Shoreditch.
At what stage were you in the relationship? Was this
early
on?
This was before we got together. This was about the time that we were planning to do this podcast, and I just told her about this, which was the first time that I'd ever broached the conversation of stammering with her. And to me, it's quite a good way to talk about stammering, because it's not like I've sat down and been like, right, I want to talk about my speech to you. It's through the lens of, this thing is happening in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain that she said that she's known me long enough, she doesn't really notice my stammer. But the thing that she did that I absolutely loved, and she still does, and I appreciate this so much in her, is she was just genuinely really curious about it. Not in not in a sort of like morbid fascination way. Like, I couldn't think of like a kind of way to phrase that, but it was a genuine interest in it, and sort of how it works and how long I've had it, and like the sort of science behind it, because it is interesting.
It is, yeah.
But she wanted to just know, like, just what effect it had had on my life, and just and then also just what we'd do in the podcast, like. And she hasn't ever changed that, like, since then we're coming up on 2 years together. Like, I've told her the most that I've ever told anybody about my speech, and obviously she has supported me throughout, and I'm like the entire time. But every time that she asks anything about it, I believe that she actually wants to know. Like, nothing is courtesy.
And she knows now everything you've experienced, and there's a better understanding of who you are, and ultimately why you might act certain ways, because it ultimately does affect your life. I wonder, what about in social situations like parties or anything like that? Does it cross your mind before you meet new groups of people? Do you think, oh God, I'm going to have to,
of course it does,
say my name? Yeah.
So I thought a great deal about this. Part of why I struggled with preparing for this is I was just really trying to find any sort of healthy ways that I would any healthy behaviours that I'd implement in regarding a party or a club or whatever it is, and I sort of have two mechanisms to cope with stress and with what I felt like the pressure and the potential opportunity for embarrassment that is a big party or a night out and all of that. And in with hindsight, and I think I knew at the time, not none of it was healthy at all for me. It was really quite counterproductive. What I used to do is anytime that we'd be out in bars or clubs, I would sort of offer my friends a deal where I'd say, I'll pay if you order.
Yes, I've done this too.
Bars and nightclubs are a horrible situation to be ordering a drink at the best of times.
Yes.
Is so difficult because you're competing with people. It's really effing loud. I used to do this, and there's one friend in Bristol, a really good friend of mine called Lorcan, who is a musician, and everyone should check him out. He's just at Lorcan, wherever you find music.
So many plugs. So many plugs
from me today. But yeah, it used to be him that I'd give this deal to, which is absolutely not helpful. It would end in me having a drink, obviously, but I'd be significantly more skint than I should be.
Yeah, same.
And how has that helped me? It's not helped me at all.
Yeah. That is so interesting. I used to do the exact same thing. I used to pay for all the drinks, and it used to involve me being very, very skint at the end of it.
Yeah,
but
exactly. But at least you didn't need to talk to anyone.
That's exploitation of people who have a speech.
But it's self-exploitation, isn't it? As in, we've done it ourselves.
I mean, let's just say, I'm not judging your friend, but
oh no, but Lorcan never once pressured me. Lorcan never once said anything about it. I would approach him, and we never once spoke about why I was doing this.
Okay, yeah, but did he buy you drinks back? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. But even if we never really spoke about it, it feels relatively obvious why. So that was one of my counterproductive behaviours. And the other one was I would just drink really, really heavily.
Yes. Snap.
Just drink super heavily so that either I forget that I'm stammering and I don't hear it, therefore I have the illusion of fluency, or I'm that battered that you can just pass it off as just slurring your speech. It's not good. It's not good.
I used to do the same thing before I would go on stage to perform. I would do a shot because that was the only way to make me feel more relaxed.
So I thought it worked, and then I once told a friend of mine about this policy, and he was like, Matty, you're absolutely wrong about that. It makes your speech significantly worse, was his words. Which I get and understand entirely, but it's the fact that internally I don't hear that.
I think you're losing control basically when you get drunk. You're basically losing all sense of what you would normally do. So it's that whole not caring. Yeah, it's the whole not caring. I think that probably we think that it's helping. But this is interesting because talk about my party again, just because I have nothing else to look forward to. When I invited you, and obviously you haven't met any of my friends, I instantly thought Matty is going to be anxious about saying his name. Did you feel the same?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because it's been so long since I've spoken to anybody new in my life.
Oh, yeah.
That, I'm going to chat so much nonsense.
Yeah, no. I mean, like,
it's going to be appalling.
I mean,
but I'm also not concerned about stammering at all.
I mean, if you would introduce me to meet your friends, I would be instantly like,
yeah.
I wouldn't be. The only thing I'm anxious about in social situations is stammering on my name. I don't care if I stammer, like, normally in a conversation like now. So that's why I text you and I was like, don't worry, I'm going to tell everyone, like, I'm going to introduce you, even if that means me blocking, because I know that that's just, when you just met someone and you're in a big group, you don't know them all. It's intimidating for anyone, so that's really interesting. I mean, I know obviously with lockdown and stuff like that, you're just like grateful to be in a social situation.
I think just that sort of energy will just carry me through.
And I mean, also there's like a safety blanket because I stammer and all my friends know that I stammer.
Yeah, it's a big room of allies is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of people that you want around you. I mean, the times when I've gone into parties where I don't know anyone and I've stammered, I mean, I don't know if I actually care. I mean, as much as I have anxiety beforehand, sometimes I just think, I don't even know you. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know you. So I'm probably never going to see you again. But
is that the alcohol talking?
Yeah, is that the alcohol talking?
Exactly, right.
But I mean, there's a difference for me in my anxiety about my job. I'm professional. I feel very anxious about stammering on my name in a professional way. But when it comes to socializing, I think maybe because me and you are kind of extroverts, I just there's a part of me that just thinks I don't care. Like, I actually don't care now. I don't know how I actually feel in the moment saying that. I think it fluctuates, but yeah, I do have a sense of not caring as much in social situations, but I'm just not there yet in terms of work. I think we all care about the way that our profession, like, we present ourselves in a professional way.
Yeah.
Too much. But yeah, I mean,
but it sort of feels like it does need to be different.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
like, we have a different identity for the workplace than we do.
Yeah,
even if it's like ever so slightly different, I think that it has to be, because then if it's not, then how do you then differentiate between work and outside life? Like, that to me feels more dangerous.
Yeah, but stammering is ultimately not even just a part of, like, us internally, it's physically a part of us. So I think for me it still feels like I'm hiding. I feel like this whole conversation that we've had is I just want to tell everyone that I stammer, and you don't feel that need to. I think that contrast is really interesting. Who knows? I feel like I hopefully will get to the point where I become more comfortable with that. But yeah.
But if you're comfortable with almost being a sharer, then good. Then stay at that, right? There is no right way to do things. And if you're happy in a position, then I reckon stick to that position.
Just shouting from the rooftops.
Yeah, everyone, like, genuinely.
I have a stammer.
Oh, Gemma, you should start a podcast.
Oh my
about
god,
stammering.
That's such a good idea.
Oh
my god, maybe like I'll call it like a funny pun, like around the block or something. Like,
there you go.
Yeah, but maybe it would just be me hosting, because I just feel like I don't need anyone else.
No, I mean, anyone else would kind of slow it all down
and distract me.
Yeah, it would distract you. Yeah, I mean, I'd listen.
You would listen. Oh, perfect. Yeah, okay, well, I'll get on that. I feel like we've touched on lots of things this episode. It's been a bit of a brain explosion.
Yeah.
We've explored lots of things. I think it's interesting to see how our relationships have changed throughout the years. And I mean, I would stress to anyone that all these things take time and understanding. There's no quick fix, and there's this is the way to do things. Don't cut off all your friends. Don't shout stammering from the rooftops if you don't want to. Don't, there's you kind of navigate your own path through these things, and some people might not understand, and that's okay.
And but there, and it's important for us just to say that you're not on your own ever, and that there's help out there, and it can take many, many forms.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reach out to the British Stammering Association Facebook page. I mean, there's a great community on that page. I think we plug it a lot, but it can feel quite lonely sometimes, I think, because there's not enough out there. So I think it's a good way to end this series to have just briefly mention that, especially now we're all going out into like the social world again. So
yeah, suddenly it's back, isn't it? All these anxieties.
We're back into the normal
we
world.
Haven't really had for however long.
Mm-hmm.
Seem like they are beginning to emerge.
Yeah. Right. Well, I've enjoyed this a lot. I mean, I feel like that's a good way to end series 1. I can't believe it's at the end. Let us know your thoughts if you have any ideas for topics for episodes. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear feedback. Give us some constructive criticism, how we can improve, or blah blah blah.
Yeah,
tell us.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. The email address is mail@stamma.org. That is Stamma spelled STAMMA. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or just wherever you source this podcast from.
Yes, please leave us a 5-star rating.
Yeah, it helps a huge amount.
Yeah, let us know what particularly resonated with you, what particularly touched you, metaphorically, obviously. We're not, we don't do physical touching on this program.
No more.
Matty is now giving me the signal to
no more.
Stop
I'm going to shut all this down. I guess one of the last things to say is just to check out stamma.org and just become a member there. It's well worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
And just to thank everyone for being part of the audience and for such a good reception.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you for your
all
support and for listening. We love you very much.
And we'll be back with season 2 soon.
Season 2 soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.